Hey, happy Monday, everyone. Hope you're doing well. So, for today on the weekly Wrangle, I'll be going over some industry news, some art reviews. We'll just kind of hang out, talk about Houdini, talk about what's been happening in the month of March. It's actually been kind of a quieter month for the most part as far as news goes, but things are always changing. It's good to keep on top of this stuff. And let's check out some articles. So, first up here, Xbox is launching a new division focused on cloud native games. What this is all about is a combination of Xbox trying to basically take care of a lot of the computations that are needed for real time simulations. And so that's part of it. The other part of it is to have exclusive titles only on the Xbox network. One thing that we'll find through these articles is that right now, all of the major gaming studios and the major players are trying to have exclusive only titles, whether it's just for PlayStation, just for Xbox, just for Unreal Engine. Everyone wants people to be in one spot. And that's kind of the motif that we'll find here. Now, the article says here that according to Swift, who is the director of this endeavor, the future of cloud gaming will fit into three separate categories: ubiquity, cloud AI, and runtime calculations. Ubiquity is the ability to stream games to any device, regardless of whether the device can run them natively. So it's kind of like giving an extra performance boost to Xbox games by taking the processing power to Xbox servers. And so they do that through AI, which kind of has me scratching my head. It's like, okay, AI is cool, but it's still kind of early for that. And it looks like they'll be using natural language processing, reinforcement learning, and they're doing all this to increase horsepower and runtime. What do I think about that? I think I think what's going to happen is that Xbox is going to run into the problem of people having slow internet. In order for them to get the information to your Xbox console, people need to have faster internet, which, if you live in the States, is a big problem because we have major companies like Comcast or like CenturyLink who kind of dominate the market and keep the speeds really slow. And so, anyway, we'll see if that ends up improving over time. Hopefully, it will. But we'll see what happens there with Xbox in that endeavor. I kind of have my suspicions, my doubts on that one. So, also, as you guys are watching, feel free to add in some comments. I'm here to hang out with you guys. This one here is from Uba, and he has a question about NFTs. So go ahead and add that in there, Uba. I'm happy to address that as we go along here. But anyway, moving on. That is a bit about Xbox. Now, on to Amazon. The head of games, Mike Frazzini, is stepping down. And I don't really know what to make of this quite yet, but he's the head of Amazon Games. He stepped down from his role to focus on his family, according to a report from Bloomberg. Frazzini, who helped start Amazon Game Studios, has spent 13 years in games and 18 years at Amazon. He confirmed his departure via a LinkedIn post, saying that he had always wanted to step down in the middle of his career to spend more time with his family and pursue some personal interests. Frazzini hasn't disclosed where he's going to head to next, mentioning that he probably one day would return to Amazon Games. He also pointed out that he's excited for the adventure. So it kind of sounds like a generic reason for leaving. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it's fantastic that he wants to spend time with his family. He's probably worked super hard for the past few years. But I would also suspect that part of this has to do with the fact that in reality, Amazon isn't keeping up with the other players in the video game industry right now, at least in my opinion. They have one game here, New World and Lost Ark, which are a result of long-term consumer-focused vision for games that he helped establish. One thing to know is that when he started running the studio, he had no experience in the gaming industry. So let me say that again. He was the head of Amazon's gaming division and had no experience in the gaming industry when he took that initial role, according to Bloomberg, and was criticized by the current and former employees for rejecting the advice of the devs he hired, as well as telling the staff that each Amazon game had to be a billion-dollar franchise and then understaffing the project. So to me, that kind of sounds like potentially a situation where somebody who was a business guy tried to get their hands dirty with production and actually making a video game. And he knew the taglines. He may have known the direction, but to me, it just sounds like there were some problems with staffing and some issues with just keeping the momentum going. Because if you're always arguing with your devs and things aren't going right, then the gears kind of get locked up and quality goes way down. So I think that's kind of part of this story as well, reading this article. So we have Sony, on the other hand, preparing to announce a new PlayStation subscription. So an upcoming subscription service codenamed Spartacus is said to be a blend of the company's current PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus, and is expected to feature several tiers offering consumers both the most recent games and titles from the PlayStation back catalog. Sony is reportedly preparing to announce its video game subscription service for the PlayStation, codenamed Spartacus. And it looks like it will use the current library, the past library. Some of these titles would include God of War, Ragnarok, and there's no say on how much the service might cost. But again, it kind of goes back to this thing of people want you to subscribe to their service. It's kind of interesting to see that the video game industry is trying to move in the direction of Netflix and what kind of VFX and film had done. And it makes sense because what happened when Netflix hit the scene at the time is that they completely disrupted the film and the TV industry overnight. And I think people in the video game industry see that. They look at history and say, hey, that happened to film and VFX. We don't want that to happen to us. And so I think for that reason, everyone's trying to get a subscription, trying to get you set into their paradigm of whatever they do. Whether it's Unreal Engine trying to get you to go all to Unreal Engine, Unity trying to make you go all Unity, or if you're just a consumer trying to just go only PlayStation, only Xbox. Kind of like how it is now with HBO, Netflix, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of interesting to see unfold. All right. Speaking of subscriptions, Adobe announces a price increase for Creative Cloud subscriptions. So if you use Adobe, watch out for that. Be sure to check your billing statements. I can't imagine they want to be too vocal about increasing prices. So just be sure you kind of watch your receipts as things go on auto pay here. But they're going to raise prices. It looks like the changes will come into effect starting users' next renewal date or after April 27th, 2022. And so they'll raise between 3.8 and 6.3%. And what that means is that annual subscriptions will be billed for about $52.99 from $55 a month. So these are kind of, it looks like more minor bumps, but they're still kind of inching up. And well, I actually abandoned Adobe a little while ago for Affinity Photo, Affinity Designer, and as well as DaVinci Resolve. So if you guys are looking for an alternative that's not subscription based, I can highly recommend that as a good option. But if you do like Adobe, understandably, I've used Adobe for years as well, then just watch out for that price bump. Nvidia releases Canvas 1.2. The new version adds support for style variations. And if you haven't heard of Nvidia Canvas, what you basically do is you make a little doodle like this, and then that turns into some crazy, photographed-based thing like this. And so you can paint where you want grasses, trees. It basically uses AI to figure out what a scene like that may look like. And it's fantastic for concept artists. It's really just a fascinating piece of software in general. So if you haven't checked out NVIDIA Canvas, I think it's worth taking a peek because the technology is pretty incredible. All right, NVIDIA has introduced a 144-core Grace Superchip. So this is designed for AI infrastructure and high-performance computing. So let me see if I could find some of the specs here. It has a 144 ARM cores in a single socket, offering an estimated performance of 740 on the spec rate and complements NVIDIA's first GPU-CPU integrated module. The Grace Hopper Superchip announced last year. And according to this announcement, Grace Superchip also provides industry-leading energy efficiency and memory bandwidth thanks to LPDDR5X memory subsystem that offers double the bandwidth of traditional DDR5 designs. So I'm not, familiar as much as I probably should be when it comes to what those specs really mean. But what I can say is keep an eye out for NVIDIA and their new releases. I think we talked about this last month where supposedly the 40 series might be releasing in 2022, maybe 2023, who knows? But the speed boost might be double of the 30 series. So these are all rumors, who knows, except unless you're at NVIDIA. But keep a close eye to this stuff because it's really insane how quickly things are getting faster and faster, which is great for anyone who works with simulations and, Houdini. Okay, let's jump on over to a new acquisition. Sony acquires Jade Raymond's Haven Studios. And so on Monday, Sony announced that it had reached an agreement to acquire Haven Studios to make it part of the worldwide PlayStation Studios network. Haven is a Canadian studio led by Jade Raymond, best known for her work on Assassin's Creed. She has also led Ubisoft Toronto, EA Motive, and internal game dev teams at Google Stadia. Since 2021, Haven has been working on an unannounced AAA multiplayer game on a new IP due out on PlayStation consoles. Raymond didn't go into the details about the upcoming game. It is only known that it will have a system. It's only known that it will have a systematic and evolving world focused on freedom, thrill, and playfulness. So, to me, it sounds like she had worked up a game that was kind of PlayStation oriented, and then PlayStation decided to just buy out the studio and just bring it part of their PlayStation Studio Network or something like that. I'm not a expert on the details here, but it looks like the team currently has over 60 employees. So it's a pretty sizable studio and it keeps expanding. So if you're somebody who's interested in games and you want to be part of a company that seems to be on the up and up, I would consider this as a potential option. It sounds like they're getting pretty well funded. Obviously, if Sony came in and bought them, they see something in the studio. So if you're looking for a job in games, this might be a great option to consider. Speaking of really cool projects to work on, The Witcher, CD Projekt Red announced that The Witcher is now in development. So this is The Witcher 4, but they're just calling it The Witcher right here. What's also really cool about this is that they'll be using Unreal Engine for this game. So this is a partnership with Epic Games, and this is going to be using the Unreal Engine 5 to run this, which is really exciting because the graphical qualities of Unreal Engine 5 are absolutely insane. And what's also really cool about The Witcher being developed on Unreal Engine is that this will help Epic Games really iron out all the little things they don't think about that a video game studio will run into. So a major player like this using Unreal Engine is going to help Unreal be taken more seriously for future games, but also iron out a lot of the development bugs along the way. It sounds like the leader of this endeavor, I forget his name. Let's see if we can find it. Well, anyway, I remember reading that the development team mentioned that they're not trying to push employees to do a ton of overtime on this, which is a good sign because if you know about the Witcher 2's and 3's development, the folks who worked on that were just overworked to death making those games. And so it kind of sounds like CD Projekt Red wants to avoid that aspect of things. I think it's great. I think it's a really awesome idea just to outsource your engine to Epic Games and go with Unreal. It takes a lot of problems off the plate. And again, if you're looking for a cool job in the games industry, this is something to keep an eye on as well. Okay, I want to switch gears now to highlight an artist here that I found, a Houdini artist, NAM, from Vietnam. He recently came up this past month with a really cool bookshelf generator. And so what's awesome about this is that you have a really awesome HDA. You can find that at his Gumroad right here. And well, it allows you to dynamically change all kinds of features on a bookshelf. Now, this might be really cool if you need a bookshelf. I know that's kind of a niche thing, but also if you want to see how this was done, it kind of looks like you can go into these HDAs and see how he did it, which by itself would be worth checking out, honestly. But this is a really impressive tool. He also has a nice Ivy generator right here. So this is all in Houdini. He really breaks down a lot of how this works here on his ArtStation. And in general, I was just really impressed by this work. I thought it was great. Wanted to share it with you guys. Okay, as you might know, Elden Ring has been very successful this month. It's hit 12 million sales worldwide. I've heard a lot of people say that this is awesome because it could change the tone of the video game industry in some ways. What's nice about Elden Ring is the fact that it's a game that isn't focused on microtransactions. And I know many folks in the gaming community have been very frustrated by that model. It's just not as fun to play a game that's always trying to nickel and dime you. And so Elden Ring is just a full game. You get what you get when you pay for it. And anyway, it seems to be a well-loved title as of right now. I personally haven't played it. I've been super busy on stuff, but something to, I don't know, be aware of. Again, if you're looking for jobs, maybe try to align yourself with the studio that makes Elden Ring. So From Software, that's the company that makes it. Anyway, we just have all kinds of real-time video game stuff today. It's awesome. This here is a new fluid-based water simulator that's in Unity. And the cool thing about this is that you can move objects and have them dynamically react to the water simulation. So he moves a rock right there. It seems to, in real time, react to what the water is doing. In practice, I think this is kind of a very niche situation that would require this, honestly. But, I thought it was really cool. It looks like it changes the flow maps or the textures based on the shadow of the object or something like that. But anyway, I thought this was pretty interesting. Something to keep an eye on if you are into real-time VFX. And maybe this could be a cool challenge for yourself to create something like this in real time as well. Okay, also we have Apple unveiling a new powerful desktop and next-gen Apple Silicon chip. What's really cool about this is that SideFX has partnered with Apple to create a version of Houdini that plays nicely with the Apple Silicon tech. And so right now we have the Apple M1 Ultra. And from my understanding, if you don't know anything about the M1 series, you're basically combining your CPU and your GPU, and it takes advantage of a shared memory pool. And so the technology behind M1 chips is completely different than what you're used to, because instead of having a CPU and a GPU, they are the same thing and they pull from the same memory. And so that's a really cool feature. So far, the M1 chips haven't been that overwhelming in terms of performance. However, this M1 Ultra can actually perform faster in some situations than a 3090 graphics card. So that is pretty impressive. Now, unfortunately, the price tag is pretty hot as well. As we can see in this article, in order for you to get a M1 Ultra, you basically need to spend about $4,000. I don't know if that includes a monitor, which Apple likes to, charge a lot for as well. So I still think that it is kind of a cost prohibitive way to go as opposed to building your own rig, but it's very promising. Right now, we're looking at 128 gigabytes of RAM. That's pretty awesome. You can get a 20-core CPU. It goes up to 64. I think I saw 32-core CPUs as well at some point. And in the future, who knows how fast this is going to get, because the performance jump from the original M1 chip to this Ultra was pretty huge. And let's see if we can take a look at some additional details. It took a little while to find the exact specs here. As a basic rule of thumb here, Apple claims that the M1 Ultra delivers faster performance than the highest end discrete GPUs, such as the Nvidia GeForce RTX 3090, while using up to 200 watts less in power. However, that's coming from Apple, and we'll see if that actually holds up during testing. If you guys want to know how the performance actually tests out outside of what the manufacturer claims, you can go to Passmark if you haven't done that before. So if we just go over here and we Google Passmark CPU benchmark, we can take a look at the actual benchmarks that are run on people's rigs. So as these M1 Ultras come out, I'm going to be really curious to see how they actually hold up in terms of this particular milestone right here. So something to keep in mind as we go into the future. All right. So that about does it for the news for this month. I'd like to now switch gears over to art reviews. And actually, before I do that, let me show you guys what I've been up to lately. I've been creating a lot of fun models for a new course. Modeling 1, as a matter of fact, is getting a nice redo. This will feature all kinds of cool exercises, as we can see here. We have fans, we have squiggly bowls, all kinds of crazy funky shapes. These are basically pictures I took at a home goods store. And what's cool about this particular modeling course is that it's designed to set you up for procedural modeling and just getting to know Houdini's modeling toolkit in such a way that you are now comfortable with the basic nodes of modeling in Houdini, and that can then take you to the more advanced procedural topics. That's going to be the goal of Modeling 1. It's exercise based. It's kind of getting your hands dirty with small little exercises that get harder and harder. And then at the very end, we're going to create this epic wizard tower that you see right here, which again is all modeled. Even these bricks, we have little polygons going on right there. And so do keep an eye out for a redo of Modeling 1. I basically just need to teach that this week. And well, if you've already bought Modeling 1, this will just be a new upgrade that you get as part of your original purchase. Or if you're a subscriber, then you'll have stuff to play with there as well. Anyway, that's what I've been up to. Let's go ahead and switch gears now to talk about art that's been happening in the side effects community, specifically Mardini. I don't know if you guys have checked out Mardini and the stuff that people come up with, but it's amazing. Really, really awesome. So this is a competition Side Effects puts on every March of the year, and every single day, week has a different kind of theme going on. And so as an example, day 25 was IK chains. And so people submitted artwork that took advantage of that particular Houdini feature. And again, the stuff that people come up with here is just super cool. So let's go ahead and maybe take one of these, and I can just kind of pick on it for a second here. Let's take this one right here. This was a cable generator challenge. So how can you use the cable generator in an interesting way? And man, what a cool idea. Let's see who did this actually. So this was done by Wool Skirskis. I have no idea how you say that. Wolski Kreis. Yeah, I don't know, but this is awesome. So we basically have this creepy kind of like mech horror thing going on. But you know, I think this was probably created in like a day or two, which just shows why Houdini is super awesome once you know how to use it. Yeah, I'm not going to go into critiquing this in particular or really anything in Mardini because I know people are working with tight deadlines. But let's go ahead and pick on some of the stuff here that's been submitted to the gallery. We'll talk about what's awesome, what could perhaps improve it, take it to the next level, and give you guys some inspiration for your own projects. So this one was done by Matthias Ferna. Looks like we have some balancing bowls. Really love the concept. Love the shaky camera. Love just the sense of everything falling over, but not actually falling over. It has a unique feel because of that. And I think this is an excellent example of how you can use animation to just add to the feel of a project as an overall. One thing I could say might improve this is altering the textures just a tad bit. I do like having this stone texture, the stone white here, but perhaps this could benefit from some more detailed texture work. Maybe you can have some glazed pottery or something like that, maybe some ornate designs happening. I think that'd be a bit more eye catching than just a general shader on that. I know the point is more the animation, but again, that would probably take it to the next level. I think that the smoke down here could use a bit more breakup, a little bit more detail. All you would need to do for that is just have a really fine grained volume fog noise cutting into it. And that would make it more detailed as it moved along. And well, besides that, I think the wood plank is pretty cool. If you wanted to, again, go kind of more crazy with it, you can add a couple little details. But honestly, I think with those two changes, that would make this stand out a bit more. And then perhaps as well, you could take some of the bright areas and get them closer to whites just to make this thing pop out. A little bit more mid-tone contrast might help. But overall, I really like this project. I thought it was cool. And well, I think you guys might agree. All right, this one here was done by, oh geez, let's see if I could say this. Avendran Srivatovs. Yeah, sorry for butchering that name there. But anyway, this is a really cool destruction sim. We have this going on, some big old chunks flying out, and then we have a breakdown like this. So, a few things. I do love the fact that he thought about the environment. This isn't just some kind of big void of, just a black backdrop, whatever. It is blending into an HDR. There is some thought and consideration as to where this building is. And that's really nice to see. So it's nice to see that he's thinking about that, for one. I would say that in this case, the fire is not doing him any help. It would be better just to actually have it all be dust the way it currently is. So I would just say, personally, in my taste, to take out the fire, just kind of leave it at dust. When you look at reference, a lot of times if a building does blow up, the fire is only going to be there for just a hair of a second, really fast flash, and then everything else is smoke. That also kind of gives it a more of an impact, like a faster boom. So that could help this situation out a fair bit. And then I would also say the next biggest thing is to add some particles, some smaller details. One thing that really helps with scale is going to be these tiny little particles that just fall down. And if you slow down those particles as well, so kind of slower, lots of small particles, lots of small detail, maybe have like a 3-to-1 ratio, small detail to large chunks, like really have a lot. That's going to really help sell the scale of the explosion. And well, the hard thing when you're making a building explosion like this is to take it from it looking like a miniature to actually looking like a huge building just blew up. So those tiny details would probably help in this situation. But overall, I think this is pretty cool. And well, good job. All right. This one was really cool as well. I also love how Sakuma had put a description of some of the details here. So it looks like he is using a Threadripper 3970X with 128 gigabytes of memory. The renders here took about 30 minutes, and we are looking at 50 million particles. So let's take a look at this. Okay, awesome. So, yeah, in terms of what can make this better, well, let me start off with what's awesome about this. What's awesome, I think, is the shading. I love how this blends in with the backdrop. I love how this kind of blends in with the clouds. It feels like this object is part of the environment. I think that's really awesome. Also, I love the differences in speed. Notice how the fluid in the front here is moving slowly, and then these things on the side move kind of quickly, or just general areas move quickly. It just adds a lot of complexity to the overall effect. So, one thing to think about for your own simulations, if you're doing this kind of thing, is just to think about the speed. And sometimes, if you can get that contrast in speed, it feels like there's more detail in whatever's happening. And in this case, that's absolutely what's happening with slower areas versus faster areas. I do think some of these areas might be a little bit too fast to, really have a big scale. I'm assuming that this is supposed to be some huge titan-like creature coming out of the ocean. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's like size of a person. But if you want that huge titan, enormous size, then the water does need to be slower in general than this. But do love the contrast and animation. I think the shading's really cool. I think what might help a little bit as well is having some secondary particle simulations, some more spray kind of spitting out of the water here. And, there might be spray that's happening, but I just can't tell because either it's shaded too subtly or something like that. But again, what I would say is that when the destruction, or just like the destruction, when you have those tiny particles, those really teeny details, it helps in adding, well, detail, but also selling a big scale of something. So tiny, tiny little droplets would probably help this out a bit as well. But overall, again, I think another great project. Okay, I think we have one more here. This is Fridge Stalker. And this is just a still image right here of this abstract pattern. I think it's cool. I think it needs some color to really be like popping out to me. I think this kind of thing generally has been done by artists before. So I think this is a situation where things are on the right track, but does this thing move? Can we take it to an interesting place that hasn't been explored before? I think this is getting close to that. But it looks like we have some volume noise that's displaced, maybe turned it into polygons somehow. I'm not sure exactly how I did this, but if you mirror a little sliver of this, if you make a sliver and then mirror it a bunch of times around, that to me kind of seems like what's happening here. And well, I guess maybe one takeaway is that if you go the route of this abstract design stuff, don't just keep on going. Like, have the animation, have some interesting colors, have something that is interesting and is kind of specific to you that's happening in a situation like this. And anyway, I'm not hating on this or anything. I think it's pretty cool. I love all the crisp detail. I think in general, whenever you have these fine detailed noises making these patterns, it just makes it look really cool. But if it was me, I would try to take this maybe a couple notches further, and that would make it really awesome. Okay, well, guys, that about does it for today. As always, feel free to get in contact with me if you need some help with Houdini. I offer one-on-one professional consultations as well as mentorships at CG Forge Academy. And besides that, I hope that this month of March has been great. Good luck going into April. And until next time, I hope you have a great day.